Welcome to Gameonysus Weekly, your one-stop shop for video game news, keeping up with the biggest stories so you don't have to. I am your host, Janet Garcia, and today we're talking about this year's Game Awards, GTA and Battlefield's launch issues, and Ubisoft's pay raise. All these stories and so much more on today's episode. Starting with what to expect from the Game Awards. For this, we head over to the Epic Games website with an article written by Brian Crescente titled Jeff Keighley Details the Game Awards 2021 and Beyond. The article kind of gives a brief summary of where the Game Awards has come so far, a little bit about, what has it learned from the past, why isn't it virtual again, things like that. But we're just going to hit the big pieces that came out of this. The article reads, Keighley said he expects the show to feature 40 to 50 games this year, quote, some way or another. He added that the number of new games being announced is probably in the double digits. While Keighley couldn't talk about the specifics of what was being shown, if for no other reason than a lot of things are still in flux, he did say that the show is going to have some really cool next-gen stuff. Quote, I still feel like we've only sort of touched the surface of what's possible on the PS5 and Xbox Series X, so I think you'll see some stuff in the show that is truly pretty stunning, he said. We'll see footage of games that will remind people that the best of this industry is still to come. And towards the end, the article mentions there aren't many new markets for Keighley and the Game Awards to expand to. The show is already shown just about everywhere, including China, India, Russia, Southeast Asia, and Brazil. But Keighley does see one substantial potential location for growing viewership, the emerging metaverse. The Game Awards can already be watched inside some virtual worlds via devices like Oculus and games like Core, but the show is just starting to fully understand how best to tap into a virtual world viewership. We're really interested in the metaverse style of how people watch the show, he said. We're starting to explore the idea of finding new ways to distribute it using games and game technology. That's actually kind of our next platform, right? We're a show about video games, so of course we should be airing it inside of video games if we can. We're thinking about what we can do in Fortnite Creative, what we can do in Core. So it's early days with this stuff, but I do think in 5 years, more people will watch our show or participate in our show from within a kind of real-time 3D environment than just watching a traditional video feed. There is one thing Keighley and the Game Awards aren't currently interested in. We're not, he said, doing any NFT stuff. 40 to 50 games is a really high number, but again, it's shown in some capacity, and how many of those are games we've already seen, mobile games that are not super interesting or kind of are already known quantities, ads and things. I think what's more fascinating than that 40 to 50 metric is the double digits of new games being showed and the mention of next gen stuff, because if you combine those two, there is a very good chance that we will see, if not new next gen games, maybe footage for upcoming next gen games that could be enticing. It's a little hard to imagine what that might look like. There was recently a Sony State of Play already, couch it to be. That being said, I'm always very excited to watch it, more so for the award results, honestly, than the announcements, but surely all of those are going to be of some level of intrigue, and I'm excited to check it out with everyone when that show drops on December 9th. And again, it will be in person with limited capacity, and of course, it'll be streamed as always. And as far as metaverse stuff, I think Fortnite Create totally makes sense. I'm kind of shocked it hasn't happened already, but I don't know the intricacies and potential complications of setting up those deals and why that might not have happened. But I mean, clearly the conversations are sort of there in the ether. I think Fortnite Create would be a really fun and smart play for Keighley and his show. Pivoting from smart plays, let's talk about Battlefield 2042 and GTA The Trilogy's release. For this, I'm pulling from Steven Totillo over at Axios with the headline Battlefield 2042 and Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy stumble in release. The article reads, EA's advanced release of Battlefield 2042 and Take-Two's GTA The Trilogy have both stumbled out to release this week, replete with technological problems, outages, and some signs that fixes are coming. Why it matters. These are two more examples of how modern games often release rough, with players expected to wait for patches to make them run better. The Battlefield details. Battlefield, which doesn't officially release at a standard price until November 19th, is launching without voice chat, a crucial element for any modern multiplayer game, and with a cascade of technical issues. The intended Call of Duty competitor was set to launch in October before a last-minute one-month delay. The headline for the Washington Post review Battlefield 2042 should have been delayed again. The GTA details. Take-Two and Rockstar's trilogy is a day old and already the stuff of memes as players mock odd-looking characters and glitchy rain. Trilogy is a remake of 3 PlayStation 2 era GTA games, but updating them was clearly no easy feat. Rockstar pulled the PC version of the trilogy on Thursday and has deactivated its Rockstar Games launcher, which is used to start its PC games. The big picture, 2042 and Trilogy will probably run better in the weeks and months ahead. At least that's what usually happens, as publishers and developers consistently use the weeks before and after release to prepare downloadable patches that improve their games. But such improvements are never guaranteed. On its support page, EA notes that we will be working throughout to ensure that we continue to resolve the game's issues. Voice chat is planned for release by date 25, EA told the Post. And then they also have a flashback section kind of discussing Cyberpunk and its launch and the struggles it has had with being refunded and delisted and all these issues that it's also had. These 2 games are really interesting to put together in conversation as they are suffering very similar problems. And I think they both speak to a element of things that were rushed. While I think it's common, or it can be common, to have these patches to sort of fix problems that weren't ready on time, I will say I don't personally feel as a modern gamer that this is like the standard. I think if anything, it is emblematic of developers / publishers either getting away with these things or thinking they can get away with these things. And the question is always, how long can you until your fan base does that turn? I mean, I remember conversations way back in the day regarding Bethesda and Fallout and how, oh yeah, Fallout, it's glitchy, it's buggy, it's part of the charm, it's so funny, and everyone was kind of cool with it. And then, you know, especially around Fallout 76, which had a very rocky launch and rockier reception and has never really, you know, reclaimed any glory, folks are now like over, oh, it's cute that there's bugs in your game, it's cute that your game is broken. People don't really sit with that very well, and I think a lot of the stuff that I've seen with GTA, because even outside of the character models and like the rain, there are a lot of like glitches and performance things, and I've seen in just general jank, like the way the game functions is like a little bit janky, but like in my mind, I'm like, these games have always been janky. So yeah, this is the jank that we know and love. However, like, I don't think we really love it anymore the way we used to, which is fair because it probably should work, right? But I think we have sort of grown past turning a blind eye to bugs and seeing that as developmental charm. And now we just see it as like broken and poor craftsmanship. So I think the real question will be, what is the results of, you know, these occurrences for the team behind GTA and Battlefield respectively? I think that's really where we're going to see this thing play out. Not so much in the right now, but in whatever their next project ends up being. Last week, we talked about a better Ubisoft and their campaign to get actual change happening in Ubisoft and to get employee demands met. This week, we're talking about Ubisoft's pay raise to stop developers from leaving. This comes over from Ethan Gatch over at Kotaku. With the subhead, the raises are highest for those who are already best paid, promoting criticism that it will only fuel inequality. The article reads, Ubisoft's Canadian studios announced pay raise for staff. The article reads, Ubisoft's Canadian studios announced pay raises for staff at the Assassin's Creed and Far Cry publisher to combat an exodus by many of its most senior developers, Kotaku has learned. While the raises are across the board, sources tell Kotaku that those who are currently earning the most will see the biggest increases, prompting criticism that the new benefits will reinforce existing inequalities at the studio. Ubisoft Canada, which leads development on many of the company's biggest blockbusters like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Far Cry 6, and Watch Dogs Legion, consists of offices in Montreal, Quebec, Toronto, Chicoutimi, Halifax, and Winnipeg. The new pay raises are set to go into effect immediately and will begin being paid out at the end of November. Employees will also be receiving more vacation days and better pay during parental leave. They're desperately trying to hold on to what few experienced devs are still here, one current developer in the Canadian studio told Kotaku. But the exact amount of the pay raises will vary depending on the employee's position at the company, sources said. According to the worker group, A Better Ubisoft, junior staff will receive a 5 to 7% increase, while the most senior staff could see their pay increased up to 20%. That would mean a lower level developer might see a $50,000 a year salary increase by $2,500, while a higher level developer making $100K could see as much as $20,000 in additional pay. These moves do absolutely nothing to address the key demands of a better Ubisoft, the group told Kotaku in an emailed statement. In addition, by weighting the pay raises enormously in favor of senior staff, management are exacerbating the gap between highly and low-paid workers. And then one last thing to note is on Ubisoft's side of things, a spokesperson speaking to Kotaku said, this year the market has changed dramatically in Canada, and that is why this adjustment starting at 5% and up was intended to partially address that issue. It's the first time we are doing a mid-year increase. There will still be another adjustment to come in April as usual. This is the first of a number of initiatives we are announcing to provide a competitive employer offer and as part of our broader ongoing changes. So yeah, I think this is interesting. I mean, throwing money at the problem is definitely, a choice, right? And money is everything. So yeah, that seems like it could be really enticing. However, with how it is structurally, I think there's definitely a lot of issues there. I think certainly someone making 100K going to 120, it's helping the people who need the least amount of help versus people that are pulling like 50, 60K at the bottom of the company. And yeah, like, $2,500 is better than nothing, but it actually ain't that wavy. Like once, account for taxes and stuff, like how much is that extra per check? It's not a lot. It's not a big increase. It's pretty mild, honestly. And I guess the fact they're having this mid-year and then also the other one at the end of the year is at least something. But again, to like echo or to rather like nod or acknowledge what a better Ubisoft is saying about this is that like this does not help with the problems we actually have and in some ways exacerbates some of the existing problems. And yep, I totally see that. I think a lot of times this tends to be the case, and they're trying to retain people. There was another story this week about someone, I think the head of the creative director of Far Cry leaving, but then also one of the lead writers on Assassin's Creed coming back. So it's a bit of a rotating door, and that's the case at a lot of companies. I'm not saying that's unique to Ubisoft or necessarily that automatically is an indicator of the problems that are at a company, but I think in this case it seems to be a little bit and often can be. So that's sort of an update on what Ubisoft is doing over there. And more money for people is good, and I'm also not against like the higher ups getting a higher pay. I think certainly like 120 is way more enticing than 100 and probably more suitable given the kind of work that is done. But I also want that floor to be lifted too. I think raising the ceiling isn't really moving the needle in some of the problems that we have in terms of pay in this industry. And speaking of problems, it's going to be really hard to get a PlayStation 5 for the holidays. Given this article by Matt Purslow over at IGN that reads, Sony reportedly cuts PS5 production plans, making it even harder to get one, with the subtitle, The Ongoing Chip Shortage Strikes Again. The article reads, Sony has reportedly cut production plans for the PS5 by around 1 million consoles due to its component shortages and logistics constraints, and with less consoles being produced, it could be even harder to buy one. A report from Bloomberg cites sources familiar with Sony's operations. Those sources claim that Sony was originally targeting more than 16 million PS5s to have been produced in the year ending in March 2022, but that figure has been cut down to about 15 million. So yeah, not a whole lot to expand on this one. I think it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, these are just like technically rumors substantiated by Bloomberg and their sources, but I think the likelihood of that is pretty strong given, the outlet's reputation and then also the logistics of, the chip shortage is very much impacting production. So we'll just see how it goes. Again, good luck to all of y'all who are trying to get a PS5. It's wild. This is like the longest. I feel like this is the longest it has been where it's been hard to get a console after its launch. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And it really sucks for those who want the console and they can't get it. So, be sure to do your due diligence for hunting it down, be in groups, have Wire64 on there. And, best of luck to you because they sell out and they sell out really fast. And speaking of console sales, let's talk about what's going on with the Nintendo side of things. This comes over from The Verge with a headline, the Nintendo Switch is back on top in the US after OLED launch. This is written by Andrew Webster with the subhead, Nintendo's Doug Bowser on Switch sales, supply issues, and N64 emulation troubles. The article reads, last month, the PS5 ended the Nintendo Switch's nearly 3-year-long reign as the best-selling console in the US. That proved to be short-lived, however. In October, thanks in large part to the release of the new OLED model of the Switch, Nintendo is back on top. According to Nintendo, the Switch sold 711,000 units overall in the US during October, and 314,000 of those were the OLED version. Doug Bowser notes that these October sales numbers are 3% lower compared to the same time last year. Earlier this month, Nintendo cut its overall sales forecast and now expects to sell 24 million units globally between April 2021 and March 2022, 1.5 million less than previously forecasted due to the global chip shortage, which again we were just talking about with that PlayStation story. And Bowser says he doesn't predict those supply issues changing anytime soon. Outside of hardware, Nintendo noted that Metroid Dread, which launched alongside the OLED, sold 854,000 units in the US, making it the best start for any Metroid game ever, according to Bowser. Meanwhile, Animal Crossing New Horizons received a significant spike in people buying the game after its final major update. According to Nintendo, though the company hasn't released specific numbers on this, New Horizon is currently the second best-selling game on Switch with nearly 35 million units sold globally. As far as the emulation stuff with the N64 games, kind of just like a fluff answer. We take feedback very seriously. We're continuing to look ways to improve the overall performance. It's about quality and great content at a great value. And Joy-Con Drift, kind of the same deal. Like, hey, we're always making improvements on it. And just a mention that the latest version of the Switch OLED has the same updated analog stick that's now available in the original Switch and the Switch Lite. So just kind of reiterating that, like, we've made these improvements over time and put them across all of our different SKUs and stuff. So shout out to that, especially because Nintendo's having like a really slow year, like a glacially slow year. There's very little to talk about or do on the Nintendo side. So I think the success is like very much a testament to people wanting this console and wanting to play Nintendo games, even when there aren't really that many Nintendo games to play. But, you know, Metroid Dread doing well is really great. You know, I jokingly mentioned that this is the only window where they can really thrive because it really just isn't much in the way of like big heavy hitter titles. Of course, we have Pokemon coming out soon. You know, the old Mario Party games released, but again, it's a light year for Nintendo, but I'm happy to see that they're doing well and their consoles are selling. And I think the multi-SKU system they have going for them is really working well. And a really quick PSA that Netflix Games is now on iPhone and iPad, so it's finally available on iOS after its initial launch on Android. Pretty quick turnaround to getting that on iOS. And Twitch is now on the Nintendo Switch, which is really difficult to say. Now the question is Netflix when on Switch, because especially if you could play the Netflix games on Switch, like that would be wild, because there's a game that's on or under the Netflix games umbrella, I don't know how you describe it, that costs $10 on Switch and PC. So it'd be like so wild to be able to get that basically on Switch for free. Please do it. So I guess that'd still be kind of down the line because they have limitations on how you can play these games right now. Right now they very much are mobile proper. But once they expand with like TVs and things like that, I'm sure on your consoles you can play these games. That would be my guess, at least. Now let's talk delays, as there were two really notable ones this week. The Playdate is delayed from late 2021 to early 2022. The reason being that they were hit with a surprise battery issue, where the batteries weren't working as long as they thought they would, so they now have to replace all of the batteries. They also are now going to change out the main board because due to this chip shortage and other issues, like they're not able to get more of the boards. Like it would take 2 years for them to get enough to make all of them. So they were just going to change it with a more widely available CPU that's similar. And then they have it broken down based on pre-order groups. So, you know, if you're group 1, it goes from late 2021 to early 2022. But if you're like group 5, like the last 40,000, 50,000 people, it's still going to be 2022, but it'll be like the late second half of 2022. On the brighter side, they've worked on some software elements, and the Playdate's an open platform where anyone can develop for it. But to do that, you'll need either the full Playdate SDK, which allows you to code in C or Lua, or in Mac, Windows, or Linux, or Pulp, our friendly game making tool that lets you build simple games right in your web browser. But when will these be available? They're super close to the finish line, so we're excited to announce some estimated dates for them. The Pulp public beta should be arriving in January 2022, and the full Playdate software development kit, SDK, should be arriving in February 2022. But it's not just little guys hit with delays. The Steam Deck is also delayed by 2 months. So the first consoles will ship in February 2022. Similarly, their reasons are global supply chain issues, material shortages, components not reaching their manufacturing facilities in time for them to just hit that initial launch. And now for game releases and updates. Among Us got a pretty substantial update. For this, I'm pulling from Ed Nightingale at Eurogamer, who writes, new roles have been added to Among Us in an update available now. The update expands on the existing imposter versus crewmate setup with 4 new roles: scientist, engineer, shapeshifter, and guardian angel. Each role has a unique ability, which should add to the Mafia-inspired fun of the base game. The scientist and the engineer are both crewmate roles. The former will allow the player to check for player deaths without physically finding the body, while the latter will be able to use vents previously only available to imposters. And if you die, play as the guardian angel and offer a shield to prevent crewmates from dying. The shapeshifter role, meanwhile, allows imposters to disguise themselves as crewmates more easily. The roles can be customized in the settings or removed altogether if you want to stick with the base game. New cosmetics have also been added to the game in the form of Cosmic Cubes, a branching path of unlockable cosmetics. They're available to purchase using 2 in-game currencies: beans, awarded through normal gameplay, and stars, bought with real money. Our cosmetics are purely visible and do not affect gameplay or gameplay options, explains Inner Sloth community manager Victoria Tran. You may have noticed that the game is free on mobile with no ads. We're working on getting the ads to be a better, safer experience. And the PC and Switch version is $4.99. To keep the game going, servers running, and give everyone more free cosmetic options, we're excited for the Cosmic Cube update. And then if anyone feels like supporting us, then the paid cosmetic option is there too. Achievements have also been added to the game. So that's pretty fun, pretty substantial. I think the achievements thing is also very cool. So yeah, I mean, if you're into Among Us, I think it's definitely something that you'd want to explore. And they also put a reminder in this article saying that Among Us will be released for PlayStation and Xbox on December 14th, alongside the existing PC, Switch, and mobile versions of the game. And lastly, for the shut up and take my money section, this is where we talk about like interesting merch and stuff. I'm going to throw this in there just so that we can talk about it, but this is not something that I am interested in. Because I don't have this kind of money. Like, shut up and take my money. Like, no, I don't have this. And if I had it, I wouldn't give it to you. This is a Gucci Xbox crossover. And if you're watching the video version of this show, you'll see some images on screen now. They're creating 100 numbered Xbox Series X sets. And it's like a bundle. So you get like this Gucci, like, I guess it's like a suitcase, like piece of luggage or whatever. It looks dope, but then it says Xbox on it, which is like kind of ugly and off-putting. And then the Xbox itself, it has like the etchings of the Gucci logo on it, like not the logo, but like the pattern. Then the controller is basically black, but it has the blue and red like diagonal stripe. And it's like the bougiest way to like carry your Xbox around when you're traveling, I feel like. And the tag, of course, says Gucci, and then also says Xbox, which Gucci and Xbox, like the logos don't really jive that well together. But yeah, this is interesting. It's very hype beast. Not going to be something that I can get or that most people can get. It's $10,000, by the way. I forgot to mention that. But I believe it does come with Game Pass, so there's that. If you're looking for the best deal in gaming and also like luxury goods. The Gucci Xbox, everyone. And those are all the stories we have for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching over on youtube.com/Gameonysus and for listening on podcast services. Be sure to leave a review if possible because it helps the show a whole lot. On YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, tap the bell, and drop a comment. And as always, a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. You too can join over on patreon.com/Gameonysus, where you can get early access to this show and a bunch of other rewards. Rewards start as low as $1 and go all the way up to the $25 sponsor tier. And as always, I will see you here next time. Bye.